Welcome to Biocomputation with Max. I'm a little bit under the weather, so forgive me if I don't sound as clear as I would like. But this is another important video talking about the state of the country and the state of the problems, so to speak. I promise a more upbeat video tomorrow. But today, let's discuss the strength and the price of ignorance. So in George Orwell's 1984 book, there were three main party lines: war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. The third entry here is like the gateway drug into the first two, and it allows the current US empire to play the role of the big brother in the book. All of our previous presidents, Trump, Biden, Obama, Bush, lied about war and peace freely, from weapons in Iraq to the nature of war in Syria to what was happening in Libya to what is happening in Ukraine or Iran. They start with creating a threat that does not exist. Colin Powell dishonored himself by lying to the UN Security Council as he waved the vial in the chamber and blatantly lied about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, resulting in an invasion in 2003 and massive destruction and loss of life. Donald Rumsfeld personally brought military intelligence to Saddam Hussein some couple of decades earlier in US-instigated Iraq-Iran war, after Iran became independent and held US personnel hostage in the embassy. Coming back to Rumsfeld, he talked about old Europe with allusions to the importance of new Europe, meaning NATO's eastern expansion, specifically Ukraine and the conflict with Russia that's now, well, without an end, similar to what's happening in Iran. So in retrospect, this man who I would like to have liked, who authored the book Rumsfeld Rules, had about as much honor as Colin Powell, which is perhaps par for the course of these military leaders. It shows the state of the country. Now, let's look briefly at what's happening in Europe. Western European nations are increasingly jailing their citizens for nonviolent social media posts. There are literally thousands of citizens in UK and Germany that have been jailed. The fact that President Macron called the end of abundance.
What we are living through is a time of great upheaval. Firstly, because we are witnessing, and not just since this summer, but over the past few years, the end of what we might have seen as abundance.
Mark Rutte, the NATO's CEO equivalent, said over a year ago that Europeans spent way too much on social benefits and should redirect a fraction of it, perhaps 0.5% of GDP, to military purposes.
The 2% we are now is absolutely not enough. When you look what Russia is producing now in 3 months, it's what the whole of NATO is producing from Los Angeles up to Ankara in a full year.
President Trump has recently announced his great healthcare plan, which also basically abrogates their responsibility to the citizens, saying the federal government will no longer pay for healthcare and instead focus on the military.
Keep firing, assholes!
Cut all of these federal programs. Yes, it's going to cause terrible pain, but it will throw off the mask off of this beast, because we need to see it for what it is in order to get better. The US public has not been getting nearly all the government that it pays for, which perhaps is something we should be grateful for, considering that they're not prioritizing infrastructure in the country but foreign ventures. Excursion, as President Trump called this war in Iran.
So we had to take an excursion, but it's doing well. The market's holding up well. I figured we'd be hit a little bit, but we were hit probably less than I thought, and we'll be back on track in a pretty short while. Prices are coming down very substantially. Oil will be coming down. That's just a matter of war that happens.
You just said it is a little excursion, and you said it is a war. So which one is it?
Well, it's both. It's both. It's an excursion that will keep us out of a war, and the war is going to be, I mean, for them it's a war. For us, it's turned out to be easier than we thought.
He's killed the Ayatollah, much of his family, leadership, and thousands of Iranians. So the states may be able to handle the workload. President Trump recently said that perhaps they would be willing to cut taxes a little bit and throw off this responsibility to the states. I already pointed out how this is effectively a hidden tax increase. What's also notable about military spending is how inefficient it is. In January last year, Mark Rutte admitted that Russia alone produces 3 times more artillery shells than the entirety of NATO, from US to Japan. The combined NATO budget, now before Trump has increased it, was roughly $1.5 trillion. That's an order of magnitude larger than the military spending of the Russian Federation. And yet, this is where we are. So here's some basic questions for the US military, since that seems to be the primary responsibility that the Trump presidency wants to charge it with. So how is Russia able to produce over 3 times their artillery with 10% of the NATO budget? And why should we give you more money? Why did you initiate a conflict with Iran without the ability to protect US bases in the region? We know the devastation those bases have suffered. Final question, what is the goal of the US military? Is it the defense of the homeland, or is it the global projection of power and some kind of protection of our hegemony? US has the most bases globally. It's something like 900 to 1,000, probably closer to 1,000 because of all the secret CIA bases. Iran has obliterated 13 bases in the vicinity, including the base of the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. There is a spectacular video that showed a Raider dome. These are very expensive Raiders. I'm not sure which one it is, but it's worth either $500 million or over $1 billion, that was destroyed by a slow-moving drone.
A video shows an Iranian drone attacking a critical radar tower at Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait. An American service member stationed at the site filmed the drone as it flies straight toward the radar tower and crashes into it, completely destroying the structure. Video captured in Bahrain shows a low-flying drone, identified as a Shahed 136, approaching the Naval Support Activity Bahrain. The drone crashes directly into a large radome,
probably powered by a 2-stroke moped engine that's worth a few $1,000s. Did the US not expect military retaliation? Why are the assets not protected? Now, Trump pretends he did not expect Iran to strike back either at the US military installation or GCC infrastructure. He actually said that nobody advised him about this. Right. Now, GCC countries, of course, host US military forces and have assisted them in using their airspace and otherwise attacking Iran in their decapitation strike and sneak attack on February 29th. That killed the Ayatollah, several members of his family, many major military figures, as well as destroying an elementary school full of girls. On that topic, the Iranian delegation traveled to peace talks with the United States and Islamabad, Pakistan, and for discussions with President Putin in Moscow on a plane labeled Benab 168. And hopefully you know what that refers to. And if you don't, this is another example of how ignorance is used against us. It is a reference to 168 people, mostly schoolgirls, who were killed in the missile strike on Benab, Iran, on that fateful February 28th strike attack. This was furthermore a double-tap tomahawk attack. You can listen to a video by Scott Ritter that talks about the nature of that attack and how they used aerosol fuel mixture to create a giant fireball. President Trump said in reference to
Did the United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war, kill 170?
No, in my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Still
But
investigating.
the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
We think it was done by Iran
Maybe
because they're very inaccurate, as you know, with their munitions. They have no accuracy whatsoever. It was done by Iran.
A Tomahawk missile likely destroyed that Iranian girls' school. So will the U.S. accept any responsibility?
Well, I
for
haven't
that strike?
seen it, and I will say that the Tomahawk, which is one of the most powerful weapons around, is used by, is sold and used by other countries, you know that. And whether it's Iran, who also has some Tomahawks, I wish they had more, but whether it's Iran or somebody else, the fact that a Tomahawk is very generic, it's sold to other countries, but that's being investigated right now.
Mr. President, you just suggested that Iran somehow got its hands on a Tomahawk and bombed its own elementary school on the first day of the war. But you're the only person in your government saying this. Even your defense secretary wouldn't say that when he was asked, standing over your shoulder on your plane on Saturday. Why are you the only person saying this?
Because I just don't know enough about it. I think it's something that I was told is under investigation, but Tomahawks are used by others, as you know. Numerous other nations have Tomahawks. They buy them from us. But I will certainly, whatever the report shows, I'm willing to live with that report.
What an ugly, bold-faced lie. Tomahawks are very special weapons, and the U.S. has so far only provided them to UK Royal Navy submarines. That's it. They have plans to sell them to Australia, Japan, and the Netherlands. But most U.S. allies, including Israel, do not have access to these potent weapons. Was Trump completely ignorant of this fact when he made the statement, or did he lie on purpose? Pete Hegseth was also asked about this incident, and he said dryly that U.S., unlike Iran, does not target civilians. Well, that's a non-answer to a specific inquiry. Did the U.S. kill those schoolgirls? Instead of admitting a major mistake, Hegseth uses ignorance as a shield. Trump managed to bamboozle oil markets quite effectively for 2 months, despite massive reduction in oil transit through Hormuz and even production, which has ceased in some countries in the GCC region, as well as gas production. This also, of course, affects fertilizer and neon gas, which are major exports that transit the Strait. Now, I don't think the markets are run by complete idiots, but they are being played, and they can't avoid it. Trump has the power to undermine their position with a mere tweet and change the price of oil by 10%. So fundamentals are not as relevant. Short-term losses like this can be prohibitive, so Trump effectively keeps the market on a leash, hamstrung from actual price discovery, which, of course, is detrimental to the market and the market efficiently functioning what it is, which is distributing goods and services. So this not only delays these problems, but exacerbates the price discovery. Again, ignorance is being abused by Trump. This, of course, falls on fertile ground of I'm afraid to say, quite an ignorant population that has been fostered by the US government and the media. And, of course, the education department. Now, the crazy performances by Trump are practically precluding any logical analysis. It's hard to keep up when reasons for war with Iran change daily, from we just want to destroy their military to we need to contain their nuclear program, which has been destroyed, to they need to say magic words, which they've already said. Or Trump plays the same schizophrenic games with the oil markets when he makes oil flows easier or more difficult. And similarly with his rhetoric, he says oil prices will stay low and then switches seamlessly to high prices are worth it to Iran from getting nukes. Of course, besides the fact that the world's largest oil producer is US and it is making bank. So the result is that the public doesn't know what is happening or why. And it is purposeful. And the leadership is doing this on purpose. Of course, nobody could accuse Trump of having a clear plan regarding Iran or Russia or many other topics for that matter. I've previously referred to this as quantum politics in reference to the Ankara meeting, which I thought would collapse the wave function. But curiously, Russians choose to pretend and play along with these games, like the Schrödinger that the simultaneously alive and dead simultaneously, same as Russia-US peace negotiations. Same as oil prices. Trump is for high oil prices and for low prices at the same time. That's the quantum superposition. Now, this insanity will continue as long as we tolerate the collusion of three groups that I've mentioned: media, education, and government. Let's call them MEG. They call mega problems. They cause mega problems. They've colluded for, well, decades to foster ignorance in the population, and they abuse it to our detriment. They can take money out of our pocket through taxes and use it against us by giving this money to nonsense political action groups, NGOs. Many of them, like USAID, are effectively CIA cutouts. Which finally brings me to the second point of this article, the price of ignorance. There's a saying, a fool and his money are soon parted. It's an apt saying, but it doesn't fully cover the extent of the current catastrophe. In future videos, I'll talk about the destruction of collateral, but basically what we're facing is bankruptcy of the West, financially and morally. Meg knows that the system is over-leveraged and requires major readjustment, which is why we're in the piracy mode, as well as tariff mode, which has been deemed illegal by Supreme Court. Meg is trying to assist the president in this collusion to manage the system collapse, lulling the public into complacency when they're transferring wealth from the public to the oligarchy. And the primary goal of the MEG is to maintain their stranglehold on power and information platforms, rather than to inform and empower the people. The time has come to shake off this atlas, which is like an albatross around our communal necks. Like and enjoy this. See you next time.